Thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, police have identified a person of interest in the mass shooting in the Brooklyn subway attack that happened Tuesday. It's a man who posted videos online, including one where he reportedly talked about wanting to kill people. President Biden declaring Russia's invasion of Ukraine a genocide, a statement that could have serious implications. A new international arms is underway over powerful hypersonic weapons. We're going to tell you what they are and why they're so deadly. Plus, we'll look into the Hunter Biden laptop scandal.
Almost any U.S. attorney that looks at this would be looking at this as a scheme and a conspiracy.
Then later,
Do you see what I see?
we sit down with Chris Brown of the Grammy-winning Elevation Worship as he shares their latest music project.
We didn't really know what to do with some of what we were writing. We weren't writing specifically with this album in mind.
All these stories and more coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN Newswatch.
We begin with the hunt for the attacker in the mass shooting on a New York City subway Tuesday. Police have identified a person of interest. Police say Frank James is wanted for questioning after they found items that connect him to the scene. Our Charlene Aaron is on the story.
Police are searching for 62-year-old Frank James, now a person of interest in the investigation of the mass shooting on the subway.
We are endeavoring to locate him to determine his connection to the subway shooting, if any.
This U-Haul van is believed to be connected to James. Police say the keys to the van were found at the shooting scene, along with a credit card used to rent the U-Haul in Philadelphia.
If, in fact, the three things, the gun, the credit card, and the U-Haul are all linked to one person, you may well have this mass shooter.
Investigators stress they aren't sure whether James is responsible for the shooting. The Associated Press reports authorities are looking into videos he is believed to have posted online, describing America as racist and violent. The videos also contain rants against Mayor Eric Adams, and several mention the New York subways. The rampage unfolded Tuesday morning when a passenger on the subway put on a gas mask, set off 2 smoke bombs, and opened fire. 10 people were shot. Thankfully, all are expected to recover.
I saw a lot of people coming out of the train station. One of them was injured. I believe it was a lady getting shot right on her leg. She was screaming, she was in a lot of pain.
Police say the attacker fired 33 shots with a semi-automatic handgun, wounding 10 people before the gun jammed, likely saving lives.
We are truly fortunate that this was not significantly worse than it is.
Police are also checking neighborhood surveillance cameras, but say cameras inside the subway station itself malfunctioned. A backpack was left behind filled with loaded magazines, commercial-grade fireworks, and a hatchet. A Glock handgun also recovered. 29 people were hospitalized with injuries ranging from gunshot wounds and smoke inhalation to falls while trying to escape.
You see like a black smoke bomb going off, and then people bum rushing to the back. This pregnant woman was in front of me. I was trying to help her. I didn't know there were shots at first. I just thought it was a black smoke bomb. She said, "I'm pregnant with a baby." I hugged her, and then the bum rush continued. I got pushed, and that's when I got shot in the back of my knee.
The shooting comes as crime is rising in the city over the last year, with a 52% jump in subway crime and a 36% rise overall.
We're seeing continued increases in violent crimes, shootings, murders, rapes, robberies, thefts, and more generally, just a culture of lawlessness.
On CBN's Faith Nation, Ralph Silento, professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice and Lieutenant Commander Detective with the NYPD, said the problem is due to the city's political atmosphere.
We had this soft approach to crime, and it really comes back to the political landscape. Some of it has to do with the fact that the police don't feel that they're supported. Some of it has to do with the election of certain district attorneys, certain mayoral candidates.
Meanwhile, police are still investigating a motive for the shooting and maintain that nothing, including terrorism, is being ruled out. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
I want to turn now to the war in Ukraine. President Biden referring to Russia's invasion as, quote, genocide. making that declaration for the first time Tuesday at an event in Iowa. American leaders have historically avoided using the word genocide, which could require countries like the U.S. to take action. Biden said lawyers would have to decide if Russia's conduct met the international standard for genocide, but said, quote, "It sure seems that way to me." Just last week, Biden said he did not believe Russia's actions amounted to genocide, just war crimes. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky praised Biden's use of the word genocide and asked for more heavy weapons. The White House is preparing another package of military support. As Ukrainian refugees have arrived at the border crossing into Poland, they are finding hot food, warm blankets, and a place to rest. It's all thanks to Operation Blessing. We are in Medyka,
one of the most active border crossings in Poland, helping Ukrainian refugees. They cross all day and all night. It gets very cold, and most of them don't have the proper clothes to protect them from the weather conditions. For more than a week, we've had a food truck and a grill to prepare hot dogs, hamburgers, and quesadillas, as well as hot drinks. It's been very popular since a warm meal isn't always available for those who are crossing. We also provide a warm tent where refugees can rest, recharge their batteries, kids can be kids, and where we do our best to make them feel like home. Also, we had a large amount of blankets and coats that we handed out. This was a great moment to see the needs of the people that we are helping and get closer to them. Thank you.
Thank you indeed. You can help Operation Blessing in these disaster relief efforts. Simply call 1-800-700-7000. Let us know that you want to give to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can also write us at CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. The zip code is 23463. Simply note in the memo line of your check, Disaster Relief Fund. And if you choose, you can text OB Crisis to 71777. And you can visit our website, cbn.com or ob.org, for more information. Anything you're able to do is greatly needed and appreciated. While Russian conventional forces are fighting in Ukraine, a dangerous new arms race has been emerging over the past few years in a new type of warfare, as China, Russia, and the U.S. all pursue hypersonic weapons. The U.S. recently announcing it will work with the U.K. and Australia to develop not only the missiles, but defensive measures as well. That's coming as top military officials warn the world is growing more unstable and more dangerous. National security correspondent Caitlin Burke is on this story.
Back in September, the U.S., United Kingdom, and Australia created a security alliance known as AUKUS. The partnership is back in the spotlight after a recent announcement the three countries will collaborate to develop hypersonic technology.
You know, hypersonics are all the rage. And, you know, there's about 5 or 6 technologies that are really quite promising, but are also sort of the vogue, sort of the new thing to talk about when you're trying to sound like you're on top of it with defense modernization priorities.
Russia and China are also racing to develop these lethal weapons, missiles that can reach altitudes of up to 300,000 feet and are nearly impossible to detect. China tested such a missile back in October, and Russia claims to have used the weapons in Ukraine. While the U.S. is part of the hypersonic race, performing its own tests, foreign policy expert Michael O'Hanlon says this tech shouldn't be considered a radical game changer.
We already have lots of missiles that can penetrate Chinese or Russian air defenses. I just think hypersonics can do that job a little bit more confidently with, you know, so if you need to get 3 missiles through a defense system with existing weapons, you might have to send 10. With hypersonics, maybe you just send 4.
O'Hanlon says the real danger isn't what a hypersonic weapon can do. It's the confidence this technology could give one of our enemies.
It's about the perception as to whether they give some country a new advantage that it did not previously enjoy, and therefore make that country more willing to take risks and maybe even take the gamble of initiating a war or being willing to risk a war against the United States, because now it thinks it has a way to go after our Achilles heels.
Whether or not hypersonic weapons become the next arms race, the past 3 administrations have all agreed there's been a return to great power competition between the U.S., Russia, and China, and it's leading to an increasingly dangerous world. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.
Here at home, the Republican governor of Oklahoma has signed a bill into law that makes performing an abortion a felony, punishable by up to 10 years in prison. The bill does not allow for an exception only in the cases that would save the life of a pregnant mother. The law is set to take effect 90 days after Oklahoma's legislature adjourns next month. The bill is certain to face legal challenges. Multiple states have moved to restrict abortion or to make it sure that it's legal, stays legal, ahead of an expected major ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court over a Mississippi abortion law that could lead to overturning Roe v. Wade, the decision that legalized abortion. Coming up, Hunter Biden could possibly be indicted as a result of incriminating findings in a laptop. We're going to have that story for you. It's all coming up next. Stay with us. For a year and a half, most members of the media dismissed reports about Hunter Biden's laptop as a non-issue or Russian disinformation. A few weeks ago, though, some began to acknowledge that the story is real. Many are wondering why the sudden change. One possibility, Hunter Biden could soon be indicted. Dale Hurd has more on this growing scandal.
In the weeks before the 2020 presidential election, CNN was calling the Hunter Biden laptop story a manufactured scandal. The New York Times congratulated itself for not doing the story, calling it misinformation. National Public Radio said, "We don't waste our time on stories that are not really stories." The Atlantic magazine called it a right-wing media smear. And the newspaper that broke this story, the New York Post, had its Twitter account suspended. Now, suddenly, major news organizations have decided it's a story.
Well, Brianna, this is a very real, very substantial investigation of potentially serious federal crimes.
After also largely ignoring the story, the Washington Post now says the media faces a reckoning for suppressing accurate and relevant stories. So why are some in the media finally admitting that Hunter Biden's laptop exists? One theory is that indictments are coming. Just 3 weeks before the 2020 presidential election, the New York Post reported the discovery of an abandoned laptop belonging to Joe Biden's son Hunter. It was at a repair shop in Delaware. It contained hundreds of emails appearing to detail a multi-million-dollar influence peddling scheme by the Biden family. In one email, the big guy, believed to be a reference to Joe Biden, is mentioned as possibly getting a 10% cut on a deal with a Chinese energy firm. Other emails showed Hunter Biden introduced the then vice president to a Ukrainian energy executive, less than a year before Joe Biden pressured the Ukrainian government to fire a prosecutor who was investigating the company. An April 2015 email reads in part, "Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to D.C. and giving me an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together." Another read, "Don't mention Joe being involved. It's only when you are face to face. I know you know that, but they are paranoid." Former U.S. Attorney Brett Tolman, now the executive director of Right on Crime, told us the Hunter Biden case is a prosecutor's dream, and that if Hunter's last name wasn't Biden, he would have been indicted before the 2020 election.
Almost any U.S. attorney that looks at this would be looking at this as a scheme and a conspiracy, which is a standalone federal crime.
Tolman says he would have immediately executed search warrants on the financial records of the Biden family, including Joe and Jill Biden.
I would have secured FISA warrants, wanted to see, what we were dealing with, what kind of money is coming into an individual that could compromise, the highest levels of our government.
Joe and Hunter Biden have stated repeatedly that the then vice president had no involvement in his son's foreign business dealings.
I want to get to the heart of it. Did you and your father ever discuss Ukraine?
No. As I said, the only time was after a news account. It wasn't a discussion in any way. There's no but to this. No, we never did.
Your dad said, "I hope you know what you're doing."
I hope you know what you're doing.
I do.
And I said, I do. And that was literally the end of our discussion.
The major media narrative now seems to be that while the allegations against Hunter Biden are serious, none of this implicates his father. On ABC's This Week, White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain, to borrow a phrase, appeared to throw Hunter Biden under the bus.
These are actions by Hunter and his brother. They're private matters. They don't involve the president, and they certainly are something that no one at the White House is involved in.
Newsweek opinion editor Josh Hammer accuses some in the media and big tech of influencing the outcome of the 2020 election by spiking the story.
All of this was transpiring, by the way, about 3 to 4 weeks, less than a month away from a monumental presidential election. So it seems like, to me, they're covering their butts on the one hand, while on the other hand, they're probably scared, and I think that they probably don't want Joe Biden to get impeached over this. So they're trying to, I think, finagle this kind of middle ground approach. That's my best read of the situation, at least.
Award-winning journalist Peter Boyer, who has worked at the New York Times as well as the New Yorker and in television, said media outlets didn't do the story simply because they didn't like it or the effect it could have on the election.
The excuse they used at the time was that they couldn't verify it, which is, of course, a load of hogwash. They said, no, we're not going to cover this story. We don't like people who are associated with this story. We're not crazy about the effect this story might have, so we're not going to do it.
An equal or bigger scandal than what was found on Hunter Biden's laptop could be how the mainstream media refused to report it until they had to. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, we are sitting down with Elevation Worship's Chris Brown as he talks about their latest project. It's called Lion. Stay with us. Chris Brown is a voice you've heard on stage with Elevation Worship, and if you're a churchgoer, you've likely sang lyrics Chris has had a hand in writing. He's with us this week in Studio 5, sharing his latest work on the project from Elevation Worship called Lion. Before we talk about the music on the album, I want to talk about the cover because the album title is Lion, right?
Yes.
And there's a lamb on the cover.
Yes.
Explain.
Revelation chapter 5 describes, is the only place in Scripture where we see side by side, or in one passage where Jesus is referred to as the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the Lamb. Even within that juxtaposition, or even in that seeming contradiction we wanted to portray, within Jesus is he's all things.
How does this compare to previous projects, you think? What's different about it?
Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now.
We didn't really know what to do with some of what we were writing. We weren't writing specifically with this album in mind. We just kept creating and having fun with friends over the last year. And then we obviously made the decision to just put everything on this one project and let it all exist together. And then conceptually, that actually felt great to us. We loved how colorful, stylistically, the whole album is.
How are you feeling now that it's out?
I feel awesome. I will say what I just mentioned about the diversity and styles of the songs was the thing that had me the most worried. But I think now that it's been out, I've seen more than any other album, I've seen people attach themselves to more songs throughout the album. It's not one or two songs that are standing out alone. And so I think my biggest concern has been one of the coolest parts that, it's you get a song, you get a song.
I love it. What's your prayer for this project?
Man, I really, really hope that when people are listening, I think that I just hope that they find moments of God's approval over them, and they find God's, whisper of his love for them when they hear a song like The One You Love, or if they need to get woken up a little bit and their faith's shaken, they find that in Lion. But I think my hope for anything we ever put out, which is such a privilege and such an honor to ever be able to create something that people would take the time to listen to.
Elevation Worship's Line is available right now wherever you purchase your music. For more uplifting entertainment, be sure to catch an all-new edition of Studio 5. You can catch it tonight. We're taking you to Lancaster, Pennsylvania for a visit to Sight and Sound Theater, where we are all invited to experience the Bible's most epic stories as they come to life on a panoramic stage. And the latest Bible story imagined on this incredible stage is the story of David. We are going to take you behind the scenes. You can catch Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can also download the CBN News app and watch it on demand. Coming up, it's a Holy Week tradition in Venezuela, and it is back after 2 years of a hiatus. See what it is coming up next. Holy Week is underway, and Catholics in Venezuela mark the start of Holy Week, beginning with a Palm Sunday tradition. Several climbed the Avila Hill, and they were able to harvest plenty of plants for the rites of Palm Sunday. This is a 200-year-old tradition suspended during the 2 years of the pandemic, and now back. Well, it is time now for your Wednesday word. Today's word is love. Consider this: God loves, so he gives. He gave his son to die to reconcile us to him. That's love. And here's the lesson. Love is not a feeling, it's an action. So choose to love. It is so much greater than fear, and it demands action. With that word, love, make this a wonderful Wednesday. That is going to do it for us in this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at the address right there at the bottom of your screen. It's newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Make it a wonderful Wednesday, then come on back and join us right back here tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye.